So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rajiv Vijay. I'm Executive Director for Government and Infrastructure Business at Knight Frank. In the last panel, you had all the people from public sector, the leaders from public sector, who actually enabled those PPP partnerships. And thank you to Vinayak for actually reducing my job with respect to explaining about different versions or different and how the PPPs have evolved. Mr. Gulab, so I just would like to start with a quick round of introductions. I think, if you don't mind, I can do it myself. Mr. Gulab Chand, everybody knows, Chairman Managing Director of HCC, Sujit Hoshi, Joint Managing Director and CEO of IRB, Mr. Vinayak Pai, Joint Managing Director and CEO from Tata Projects, and Rahul Rohit Singhal from Messin, and Hardik Agrawalji from the Agrawal Infracon. So, our topic today is how do we enable PPP investments in the new normal? And the new normal I would define is a growing India, highly aspirational India, good quality infrastructure, good quality built environment, Gen Z wanting better quality service, comfort, convenience, technology. So India has moved a lot from last 70 years. We have moved, at least in some parts of India, from basic needs to building, to actually initially reaching out to different parts of India. Earlier we were looking for water and power. Now we are looking for clean water. We are looking for 24/7 power. Now we are looking for even highly aspirational infrastructure. The modern airports that were built about 10-15 years ago, the modern toll roads and expressways, the metros and the rapid rails, and even now high-speed rail. So there is a level of quality that has gone up in India. So how can we create infrastructure on a PP basis in this new normal, where population is very aspirational, the requirements are huge, and there's a large part of India still requiring basic infrastructure. So what I'll do is slightly different format, maybe not the same question for everyone. I would actually encourage people to, whoever wants to say, but my first question would be, given what has happened in the last session with respect to different forms of PPP, where do you see which sector in India actually is likely to attract more private sector investment? Anyone from you? Sudeep?
I think roads, because that has been happening.
Yeah.
And the model is quite matured now. So we know what is happening there. The BOT has come up well in some of, there was an issue. But the new thing is that, again, the BOT is coming back. Some of the projects, it may be 4 or 5 projects in a year. But it will slowly pick pace, I feel. And TOTs have been more successful. You have seen the results, whatever it is, but it has, all the TOTs have been picked. So I feel that roads will be better than, because the risk is now quite known as compared to anything. If you go to railways, we tried for that. It never happened. So airport is, yes, one thing which is possible, but again, there are a lot of unknown things there, which will restrict people to go for there. And I suppose highways would be the number one.
So I think one good thing that you would notice from previous session is they were all people from public background. Here we have contractors, we have developers, we have people who are assisting in dispute resolution. So I think you'll hear a lot from on the PPP side. In fact, my definition again, when I was initially when the PPP started in the first round, you start a project, and the first P used to hit was the patience. Land fully not acquired, ROB approval not there, green clearance is not available. And that patience eventually used to turn into 1 or 2 years into pain. And that's where the developer and contractors really used to get stressed out, both technologically, technically, contractor on ground, funding is getting constrained. But eventually those who have persevered, they've actually reaped good benefits. So the good successes of the road sector and the airport sector initially in round one, or the version one as vaccines, was successful. Obviously then there was a huge turnaround in the industry, some of them went out. So my next question, because you are from the developer community, and particularly to Mr. Gulab Chandji, so you have seen risks happening on the project. And you know, I would like your take on, in all this evolution of PPPs, has the risk matrix changed and how it has changed?
For the kind of infrastructure India is looking to build, 100 lakh crores, $5 trillion economy, I think we have a very huge task ahead of us. So we need to go back to the fundamentals as to how, with great hope, PPP began, and it is faltering now, almost dead in some of the cases. That is because we need to look at the structure of any PPP and understand the fundamentals. First is, when we talk of a public-private partnership, it essentially means it's a public good. It's a public project that we are doing. And you are seeking private sector's abilities and extra money to invest in it, to be doing it. So you have to make that project viable for the private sector. For that reason, you will say I'll name only 3 important features that still go against it. First is, the risks are completely skewed. They're all put onto the contractor or the concessionaire. I mean contractor because construction risk is a big risk in any PPP project. And today also you will find, like in roads and others, wherever things have been built and operating, there have been buyers. When it comes to greenfield, there is no investment coming in a big way. In fact, foreign investment has almost died in that area. They never had, never picked up. Second important feature is, you have built the risk in a very odd way. All PPP projects are project finance projects. And they must have recourse only to the project. But when you have a peculiar idea called a project, total project cost worked out by the owner or the government department concerned, and that is at variance with the actual cost that has been bid for and at which the concession has been given. This difference has got to be guaranteed by the concessionaire to the bankers, who are the lenders to the project. And because of this, the risk moves to the balance sheet of the sponsor. And this does not happen anywhere else in the world. So when you are doing that, you are creating a hole in the balance sheet of the sponsor. And that is why you will not find any foreign companies coming here. Then there is the next, so they must all sign on the same value. The lenders are not signatories to this contract, like they are elsewhere. So everything is then left on the concessionaire. The lender covers himself up. The owner says, it's not my headache, private sector, you take the risk. This philosophy has to change. That's why I'm going to the fundamentals of things. Next important, this total project cost. Why you finally give the job to the concessionaire at the bid price, which is the real price discovery. Then why you stick to your own project cost is the only thing you will pay should you foreclose the contract. So these are things coming from the old, because that way public-private partnership has been existing for a long time. Even if it was the department doing everything, but the labor contract was still private. So the public-private partnership which we need is where you want also investment from the private sector. Now, if you don't make it safe, it will not happen. Second important point in this is that lots of risks are construction risks. And we need to have serious dispute resolution timelines. It's all very well to say, we pay within 2 days, then we pay within 30 days. But what if you say that this is now a delay and therefore this is disputed? And in the delay what happens is that Nobody wants to decide how much to pay. So they allow it to go to arbitration. Almost every contractor in every contract with every department of the government of India solves his problem through arbitration only. And the same reason it goes to arbitration, I don't want to decide. Same reason it is challenged again. Courts have also helped in accepting the challenge as though it's an appeal, though there is no appeal on arbitration. So that money does not get paid for not months, but for years, creating a mismatch between the receipts and all the borrowings that you have done in order to complete the project. So unless you come down to some better practices of paying on time, resolving the disputes on time like they used to in the past, the engineer to the contract, engineer to the concession would say this is the extra cost that has been incurred and I would like to pay. And the last most important, there are many issues, but that is a separate workshop by itself. But the last most important thing we see now here is that when it comes to public-private partnership, genuinely there is no partnership. You are talking to the government of India is the attitude. If you look at the partnership, that if the contractor fails, I will fail is not. I know there are 3 C's, CBI, vigilance, CAG, etc. All this is fine. But this is the environment in which we live. And we are unfortunate or fortunate to be decision makers in that. So we got to go back to the table and say, how do we remove this fear factor? And at the same time, how do we instill? Quite a lot of our bureaucracy still thinks they have been appointed to rule over us, like the British did, and not govern on our behalf. Right. So I think we need to get back to that attitudinal change reflected in the documents that you sign.
Thank you, sir. I think point taken. Yes, you're looking for projects to be made safer, risk-free, or at least lesser risk. You're looking for construction-related risks to be managed better by both the parties. Obviously, dispute resolution and payment of time. So hopefully that circular of 29th October would help. And obviously looking for more partnerships from the government. But I would welcome views from, Vinayak Pai-ji. How do you see that risk matrix that has evolved over, 3 or 4 versions of PPP? Do you feel that the risk matrix is now more balanced?
Well, I think the fact that we are already looking for a 5th option means that none of the other 4 are working effectively. So that means that that still remains to be resolved. So I think, as Mr. Gulabchan said, the underlying word, we understand public, we understand private, but what's the partnership? The underlying word in the PPP is partnerships. And if we can find out how that partnership can become a means of each one understanding the challenges of the other, right? And set up those 2 or 3 models and then say that they get regulated, and then they are taking care of the models as they set up, are taking care of concerns from both sides. And I think that dialogue is very important to happen, and I think, Mr. Chatterjee, you have the knowledge of the industry from both sides, and some facilitation, as you said, a full day, if we have to spend on that particular topic, will be worth doing. Because unless we get that aligned, we will always be on the other sides, and we will always be looking for a model 5 and a model 6. So, and the other point I would like to make is, right now this model of whatever, model 1 to 3, 4, they are all looking at it from the risk and financial perspective. We have to also focus that finally it's the delivery perspective of how we can create infrastructure in time, to the quality, and in the benefit of the public good. That's the primary premise of doing all this, right? So if we can align on those principles and say, now how do we wrap around the risk and financial on that? That's probably a much better starting point and more sustainable rather than, so capability, bringing the right capability to solve the problem is much more critical.
Thank you. So I'll take your point there, and delivery is an important aspect, and people do expect on time these days. So Hardikji, I would like to learn from your experience as to, there is a general hypothesis in India that demand is not a risk. We have enough population. In fact, infrastructure is always lagging behind demand. So there is already a pent-up demand while you are executing the project. So if demand is not the risk, then comes the risks of implementation. It could be financial, it could be contractual, it could be construction, it could be supply chain, it could be inflation, it could be payments. So, has anything changed over the last 3-4 years or 5 years, which we can carry forward in the new normal, and what needs to change more from implementation risks?
Definitely implementation is the karma or dharma of a contract. And it's very important to note that if certain factors like clear access, vacant access to land, or clarity in contract, clear regular financial payments to the contractor, if all of this basic mechanisms, if it is in place, there is no contractor who will hesitate to perform. Everyone will be because contractors, only if they perform will they benefit. No contractor has ever benefited by delaying a project or by, thinking that, okay, I will try and find some legal or, out of the project in the courtroom settlement. That is really not the thought process of any contractor, despite some sort of a common apprehension or a common mindset, which is seen that, okay, contractors are putting so many claims, but that is not what the contractors or any concessionaire will ever intend to. Nowadays, recently we have seen that yes, authorities are working more and more to clear, to provide better access to land, other required clearances, statutory or, administrative clearances. That support is there, but, it can always get better and better. Ease of doing business for the construction industry. It's a subject that we will keep on visiting now. We visited 50 years back and we will still visit 50 years from now. So, contracting industry, there is an inherent risk to construction, but it is that is getting solved day by day as our contracts and our processes are becoming more mature. The industry itself is becoming more mature. So, there is a change, and as the esteemed panelists before, and on this dais itself, there is a suggestion that with increased partnership, these, the implementation risks will reduce day by day.
But in terms of implementation, obviously there is an institutional side to it, but is there kind of shift happening in terms of modern machinery, modern management? Because the expectation is now that the contractors and the developers must deliver on time.
Definitely, the industry is much more capable and much more advanced today. Previously we used to talk about India first, now we are talking about first in the world. So we have reached that level that you compare the capability of any construction company in India with any construction company in the world, you bring the best of the best. There is no technological trance that we need to take to match ourselves with anyone. Yes, speaking broadly in terms of the third generation or the fourth generation of construction companies, which are now entering the market, organizational management and, the supply chain management and professional planning of projects, that needs to increase, that the education and the philosophy of that needs to come in faster. But as an industry, we are very capable. We talk about 50 kilometers a day. Industry is capable to give you 100 kilometers a day. Industry is not behind anyone.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think that's an important topic. I just wanted to touch that. I think in the Indian construction industry, we see that the conversation starts and ends with the number of labor at site. You have any conversation on any project, the first question is how many people you have at site, and the last question is how many people you will add at site. So, the technology, as you said, the planning, this needs a very different approach. And, we also have this habit of going too early into a project, right? We don't plan enough and then struggle for fronts and look for, so productivity is something we don't track as much as we do in the Western world. So these are some of the basic things which, we have to align on. And no wonder, in the scale of digitization, the construction industry is only above agriculture. So, unless we take it on and find out how some of these QCBC or, some of the selection criteria which forces, both the owner or the government on one side and the industry to align on a better operating model than just relying on labor, because we all think there is adequate labor in India. It's not. I think every industry will tell you that, and that problem is going to get worse because the place we are in, people want to do something better. So, we have to crack this, and we really have to get higher on this technology paradigm if we have to succeed as an industry overall.
Yeah, so because I normally see that, the foreign players are coming here and buying operating assets and earning good amount of revenues and returns out of it. It's the Indian contractors who are willing to take the development and construction risk. So that's where the expertise and the ability of the Indian contractors come in to build this. Sudhir, any views you have on this, particularly from how IRB is trying to deal with it?
See, so we were just the session before we were talking about the competition. Now, if I have taken a project today, let it be ham, let it be whatever, it's very, very competitive there. So I would have done everything, before going to that number. There's a magic number to reach and win the project. So that means my each and every step is like costed, budgeted. So thereafter I have nothing, no margins left. So we have to move upon the new technologies. I have to see what else we can add. There are various additives which we can use to strengthen pavements and all that. That we are working. So get the best quality in the most reasonable price. I will not say the cheapest price, the most reasonable price. So we do everything today. I'll not name anything, but today again there are a lot of discussion on this. This again is a different topic. But yes, we try everything to reach to a number so that you can finish the project on time. Only thing I want to touch upon again is the partnership part. It is very, very important. I have been talking this partnership word maybe from 20 years maybe now, and still not there. So issue would be you have done everything to reach that number, and suddenly one day there will be demand, and you don't have there is a COVID crisis and you are not being paid for I got 49 plazas. So if you are not paid on time, you have your bankers, others to pay, your lenders, everybody has to be paid. Your operation expenses has to be paid. And if I take 1 year to get that payment, I am already on cash negative. And the latest fight would be for the GST 12 to 18, which we are going to fight. So these things, if given on time, so that would make a lot of sense.
In India, there's one more important factor. Only the banks are the lenders in the country. There are no other forms of bonds or everything else available. So it's the same banks that will be funding things. And these, therefore, an infrastructure project requires very long-term funding. So what we then get here is a take-out funding, the riskiest form of funding you can ever do. That the bank will give you for 5 years and then you will find somebody else to take over that. Now, the management of finance is very high risk here. So everybody should be a signatory, not just the concessionaire, the contractor and the owner. It must also be the lender in a PPP project, because everybody has come together to do this business. So I think this needs a rethink. We need to go back to the drawing board, sit fundamentally. We have planned one such idea of discussing with the government already. But PPP needs to be brought in, otherwise you can't build all this infrastructure.
Thank you. So one of the important points you mentioned last time is about the dispute resolution and as well as the delay in payments. So I would like to hear from Rohit sir actually, because you have been an industry stalwart in this, and is there anything which is improving over the last 3, 4, 5 years which will help us in the new normal to have faster resolution of disputes?
Thank you. So you see, I was just listening to Mr. Gulabchand, who is a father figure for the industry. He talked about dispute resolution arbitration. We are not talking of PPP projects. All the authorities who were sitting in the last panel, we are involved in one or the other arbitration wherein those authorities are there. Today as we speak, 1 lakh crore worth of rupees are there in arbitration related to PPP. The biggest arbitration in the construction sector in the PPP is worth around 24 to 27,000 crore, one single arbitration which is going on in multiple dispute resolution sections. People are in Delhi. All the adjoining big roads which are entering into Delhi are in arbitration. Name Delhi, Noida, Delhi, Gurgaon, Kundli, Manesar, Palwal. Everything is in arbitration and dispute. Now we are talking of partnership. We are talking of risk. How can there be a partnership until unless there is an equal bifurcation of the risks between the authorities and the contractor? Now you see, today our sector, which is construction sector, contributes 10% of the total India's GDP. If we consider 2.5 trillion as India's GDP, we are talking of $250 billion worth of money which is going and being contributed by our sector. And our sector today is almost at the number 1 or number 2 stage in the NCLT. So a large chunk of the companies who are in NCLT today belong to our sector, right? The maximum number of disputes, so there are authorities who are said to be serial litigators. That's the word which Supreme Court of India has used against some of the authorities. So what is important is that in case PPP projects have to become successful, there has to be a equality between the employer and the contractor, and that's what seems to be lacking in India. We deal internationally with a lot of disputes outside India. You see PPP projects outside India, if there is a dispute, there is a delay in the project, or there is a delay in the payment, you have live dispute adjudication boards which comes out with the decision within a matter of 7 days. Out here what happens is, in case you have a dispute, you have delay in the project, which is, ultimately the amount of money which a developer or a contractor is making is nominal. Now in case there is a delay in the payments, delay in the project, that extent of money goes away. And then the contractor ends up into their red line. So there has to be a appropriate dispute resolution mechanism. Like for example, many of you might be dealing with the latest FIDIC conditions of the contract. The 2019 FIDIC comes out with a live dispute adjudication board. Means today if you have a dispute, there is a ready dispute adjudication board. Bring the dispute to the adjudication board, get the resolution within a matter of 14 to 16 days of time, and honor that award or decision of the dispute adjudication board. Don't take it to the next level of arbitration, which of course has improved drastically. There used to be a time before 2015 when an arbitration would probably start and take 10, 12 years of time to resolve. Today at least the new amendment of the Arbitration Act has brought in a kind of a certainty with it, wherein within 2 years you at least get the decision. And of course there are many authorities which are paying 75% of the decision value against bank guarantee and all. But what we as dispute resolution people, who we call ourselves as doctors of the industry, because people come to us when they are suffering with cancer, which in this case is a dispute, there has to be a faster resolution mechanism. We have to practice what international standards like FIDIC etc. are coming out with, and then only we will be able to be successful in coming out with this new normal, the concept of partnership in people. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to add to what he said, to give you a little few understanding of what is happening. Almost every infrastructure project that the World Bank has financed has a cost overrun of approximately average 50%. We are not discussing cost overruns of 10.1% or anything. So there's no way any contractor or concessionaire can bear that, because all accepted risks are those of the owner. Second is, only 5% of the cases which go to the engineer go for arbitration in contracts from Africa to America or Southeast Asia. Out of that 5%, only 2% go to courts. In India, as opposed to this, the same arbitration acts. Every contract goes to arbitration. Every arbitration is challenged in court till the final special leave petition with the Supreme Court. This is a 10-12-year process. And the mismatch of funds coming in and going out is excessive. Unworkable. You have lost many construction companies. You will lose many more.
So this is something, an important challenge to be resolved, and I hope government is working towards it. My question to you, Sudhir, would be, I mean, in the new BOT model which the government is saying will bring out this year, has anything changed in the contracts or anything that makes you more, are you comfortable to bid now for BOT?
See, that's our bread and butter. We have to bid for that. We know the risk. We cost the risk. But then again, we cannot avoid the dispute. This is going to happen because it's not somebody, I go for it. The person in front of me sitting will say, I cannot resolve it. You go through dispute. So that's the suggestion coming from the table from the other side. So he'll say, even if it's the simplest thing, no one wants to sign on anything. He's got no power. Let it be the topmost authority. He will not do it. He wanted to get it done through dispute. And then, of course, it takes that much longer process. I don't think it's going to resolve. With the new beauty of all those things, we know these things going to happen. There will be at least 20% people who will not pay you the toll. Every day, nowadays, your Jantar Mantar is all over India. You know that? All toll plazas are Jantar Mantar. That's my... So if you have any dispute, go and stand at Jantar Mantar. That is your toll plaza. Stop it for a day or two. And then, of course, we keep on running because that's our money. It will never come back. The money which is not paid to us. But that's the easiest thing that is happening. And that will keep on happening. We know that these things will happen. We cost it somewhere. But then, ultimately, you have to fight for it. Every day, you have to fight for it. And no one will simply sign the check, okay, you lost for 2 days, that's your money. It's nobody going to.
So Rohit, is there any example outside India where I mean, we understand that no government officer wants to take a decision on his own shoulders, right up to the topmost man. So are there any examples, good examples, where such kind of distributions can happen faster, something from international community?
I think, as I said, internationally, we are existing in 8 countries and we do international disputes and arbitrations very heavily. Internationally, things are more structured. First of all, when I see international arbitrations versus Indian arbitrations, huge difference between the two. But what is happening is the latest FIDIC has come out with this requirement wherein the very day when the project is started, you have a kind of an independent committee who is going to be not looking for a reference of a dispute to come to them, but they are going to be continuously on a month-to-month basis going to be part of that project to see that wherever there is a possibility of a dispute emanating, they will go over there and try to resolve the dispute. So it's called no more a dispute adjudication body or DAB, it's called dispute avoidance body, means avoid the dispute. Now let's not go far beyond, in India also, like dedicated freight corridor has come out with a beautiful structure where if a dispute is there and the DAB decision comes, they are paying the DAB decision money after the DAB decision itself.
Right.
So that is something which I see has resolved the cash flow of many of the companies, contractors. Because today, if I am a project manager of an authority and I say that the project is delayed but probably I have penalized my contractor, I am going to lose much more money in the beneficial value of that project vis-a-vis the liquidated damages which I am going to recover from the contractor. So cash is the king in construction, and a dispute resolution which is faster and quicker will aid the expeditious completion of the project.
Thank you. So I think we have about 5-6 minutes left. What I would like is that given that so much infrastructure has to come up, at least the industry has turned around a bit now. We've gone, at least private sector, capex is happening on the ground, maybe not in infrastructure sector, maybe industries and other products, it's happening. But we do see that in infrastructure space also some private green should happen. One of the important elements that at least I have seen generally, and maybe Vinayak, you can help me here, is that at least in the big airport projects or even for transit authority projects, we are seeing that the alternative revenues are making a strong entry actually. Delhi, Mumbai airports have more than 50% revenues coming from their alternative revenues, which they call as non-aero revenues, coming from retail, from hospitality. They also are able to build quality spaces around that. So young Indians are now looking for that experiential infrastructure, something that they come and enjoy and relish. Same thing is applied to metro stations, rapid rail or high-speed rail. Same thing will apply even for common urban infrastructure, where we're not even dealing with local authority, we are dealing with urban local bodies. So you are now implementing Noida International Airport. Obviously, you are on the contracting side, but do you see potential for alternative revenues coming more in the infrastructure PPP space, whether it's roads, do you need land, do you need wayside amenities, do you need logistic parks, or in case of transit, it's pretty easy because then you can do, media is one of the important elements. So any views there?
So I think the fare revenues is only the start. Actually, it's shifting more to less than 50% and more on the non-fare. I think there is a huge opportunity there to streamline things. For example, all the, of course, for the airports and all, you see the type of experience which it provides, right? So that sets it up for more non-fare revenue, and that's what is becoming more and more popular. But one of the things which is missing is integration of all this. You have to buy a metro ticket separately, you have to buy a train ticket separately, and that's the problem. Whereas you could all bundle that all, and then the user experience will be much better because it's all integrated. So that's something we have to probably think at the next level. So how can you increase the footfall and get that done, so that all the other non-fare type of revenues can be increased. And just, one thing on the earlier discussion, I just want to reflect on one thing, which is actually very big for us as a nation and as an industry, is that we want to be a $10 trillion economy and we want to be a developed world, one of the most developed countries. You see, this whole, the EPC and, development of infrastructure has the potential to sabotage that whole dream, right? And it has happened in most of the developed countries. The EPC is a dead model. In US, in the West,
Right.
It went out of fashion first in Europe,
Right.
because of the weather conditions, because of the labor laws which are there. Most of the US, multinational companies, it's not that they don't do EPC in India, they have actually exited EPC outside also. So we have to be careful that we don't kill the goose which is going to lay the golden egg, which is developing infrastructure. And if we are not careful and we really don't focus on this and get our act together, this whole dream will get sabotaged. So I just want to bring the level of attention to what it is getting, that we have to fix this. We have to find a way of coexisting and creating that partnership between public and private.
Just to add here, I fully agree with Mr. Vinayak. The EPC model is really killing the industry. You talk of the best of best. You have the biggest contractors of times of Bechtel, Flo, Daniel. All have finished and they are no more participating in the EPC model because the risk bifurcation is huge. You see how industry started. We have the bill of quantity contracts, the unit rate contracts, all rest with the employer, with the developer. EPC came, the rest transferred to the EPC contractor. Then you have the PPP, where the financial risk is also being transferred to the contractor or the developer. So we need to be careful, as Mr. Vinayak said, because if we have to become a $10 trillion economy, the infra sector has to blossom and survive.
Right. Thank you. So I think you've almost run out of time on that note, but we do hope that there is much more private sector investment and more PPPs coming India's way. I think from 25-30% we are down to single digits now, but let's hope that over the next few years and decades, in the new normal, we have more PPP investments coming into India. So we have got a minute here. If anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to take it. And please mention the name who you want it to be addressed by, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We have all the stalwarts of the infrastructure industry over here present today. I have a particular question for three of the gentlemen. Anybody can answer. Vinayak sir, Ajit sir, or Sudhir sir, anybody can answer because they are very old in this infrastructure industry. So we were discussing about the asset and capital investment in assets, which are the key factors to complete any of the project. How you rate? You would like to go for entire buyout of all the assets on your own, or you will be prefer leasing nowadays? Because use and throw is the new policy nowadays. And because I am representing one leasing company of equipments, Econ Equipments, and we would like to ask that what is the ratio would you like to have? You would like to have all the equipments on your board, or you would like to lease it? What kind of percentage? And how it is going to affect your project completion? Maybe Vinayak sir, you can answer, or anybody can answer. Thank you.
Listen, the so-called leasing in India is only a form of financing. It is not a lease. It is, at the end of your argument, you say it's a buyback guarantee for that. So it is not a lease in the sense it's how it is in America, how it is in Europe. As far as your construction assets are concerned, construction companies are always undercapitalized because they are only providing a construction service to build assets. They don't own the final asset. So when it comes to PPP financing, is financing the ownership of the asset till it is recovered and then passed on back to the owner. So these are two different ideas. So leasing is a simple make or buy idea. Everybody takes a decision on. But it is not truly leasing in India, if I'm correct. It is always
Wet lease, you can say it's a wet lease kind of thing, or hiring of equipment for your project.
What is
Hiring.
hiring? As I said, it's not hired, it's just a lease. Where is the hiring in India? Maybe some small JCBs in some cities might be hired out for the day, but otherwise basic equipment is not hired. It's a leasing finance.
I think we have run out of time. If there are more questions, I would suggest. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
No bilateral discussions. Very interesting discussion. I retired, I am P.S. Uttarwar. I retired as an additional commissioner from Delhi Development Authority government. And then I worked with Indian Railway Station Development. So I dealt with consultants, contracts and everything. And now after retirement, I am on the other side. So first of all, I feel there is a communication gap. When I was in government, I was told not to sign file on the same day or even next day. You are suspect. So you should read your J is noting, your deputy is noting, all things, check all these things. And even if you take 1 month, it's okay. But on the other side now, when I come, 1 month means for a developer, few crore rupees interest. And that is something which government does not realize, or how much risk is for government employee if developers do not. So there is some communication should be there, some trust, and there is a vigilance, there is a CAG. The accounts guy is not interested in your projects. He is on totally different frequencies. So what is due to the industry, probably some government officer should have been in this discussion. Yeah. They should sit together. And now I can say, I think there are not much government officers here. We should abolish CVC, we should abolish CAG. The amount of money we are spending on them, that will be lot saving and not this thing.
So maybe sir, we can organize a one-day session on this. And I think, I think it's a very large topic.
That's one thing is to improve the communication. What government takes order is without consulting the stakeholders. And secondly, there should be mutual trust building measures, some kind of a measures. So people, those who are in government side, they understand the projects, how does it. Some guy is working in animal husbandry, suddenly he comes in urban development, he doesn't understand the ABCD of urban development. So probably you can talk to the government and create a cadre which understands and those who can deal with these projects. Thank you. Point noted. Thank you.